Hey, Murdoch YouTube, and welcome back to a new video with Rams fan at YT. In today's video, we will be looking at my predictions for the National League North and the National League South for the upcoming season. Lots of twists and turns, of course, in non-league. Almost an unpredictable league, some may say, and I've done it in the past. I got it horrendously wrong and done it in the past and got it relatively all right. So let's just see how many I can get right this season. We'll start with the National League North, and 24th, I'm going with Oxford City. If they were placed in the National League South, they probably would have done a decent job, but the budget will probably have been about halved due to them travelling further than 6,500 miles worth of travelling time. And Sam Cox has never been a full-time manager before and has never played in the National League North, so has no experience of the teams that will play up against. I just don't think it's a great appointment. The midfield is weak, relatively speaking, and it probably will transition to more winger style of play, which won't work, so they will be relegated. Especially seeing how negative last season was from their relegation from the National League, which I didn't put up much of a fight from the second half in. 23rd, Curzon Ashton. This team ends up everywhere in the table, and no one quite knows where they'll end up. Most of the time they're in mid-table. Last season they had to drive to the playoffs, but I can see the opposite happening this season, with a nosedive into relegation. Craig Mahon, for me, was a new manager bounce, which doesn't breed long-term success. They've so far had a poor pre-season, and the goalkeeper choices are questionable. Craig Mahon also cannot continue being a player while being a manager. That is just proven to be a failing combination in whatever time you look at it. 22nd at Southport. Last season was horrible to watch for large parts, and even though they survived, it was just because 3 of relegated sides were out by March pretty much, and they were surrounded by clubs all having to face each other. Jim Bentley is a good manager, so for me it has to be the players' attitude. Sonny Hilton comes in with a low level of matches for a 23-year-old played, and Tunde Owolabi, I think is how you pronounce it, is a nomad who will probably leave within a few months, who has never played this high in England. Tom Moore is taking a huge step up from Tier 9 to Tier 6, and if it's a symptom of a type of recruitment they're looking at, and it looks very shaky, with no players of experiences, of scrapping relegation and coming in from lower levels, it just seems like it's a wrong time to try and start this project, and could end quite disastrously wrong. 21st, Rushall Olympic. Arguably the smallest club in the league with limited fan base and a poor stadium. Apologies to any fans of Russell, but I think even you must have missed that in parts. They have made wholesale changes in the player department, and none of them really stand out to me. It seems to me they are planning to play hoofball, which won't be successful in most games when the dynamic of the National League North is shifting to a bit more of an attractive style of football. They've also brought in a whole new management team who have never managed at this level, and this just implies a car crash of appointment with an almost nailed-on relegation for me. 20th, Farsley Celtic. A team which always seem to just scrape survival in this league. They've announced a bunch of new signings, many of which are coming into their peak years, who could still play for the club in 5 or 6 years' time, with the average ages being between 23 and 25. This strategy will definitely reap benefits in a couple of seasons' time, but it's obvious to me it's a long-term plan, and this season will definitely be one for transition. Clayton Donaldson, for me, still seems an interesting person to lead this rebuild. Obviously a great player historically, but for me, I question whether he could get Farsley above hovering just above relegation zone, and I really can't see that he can. 19th, Leamington. Obviously, they are very experienced at this level, having spent 6 seasons in a row before relegated in 2023 from this level. And they have now made an immediate return, and I can see them staying in the league with their experience. They've retained a lot of that promotion-winning squad and also brought in some hungry signings from Tier 7. Now, this may be positive movements, however, only signifies for me a squad which is capable of avoiding relegation, as they haven't signed any big hitters in this league, or the ones in the league above who are wanting a bit of a challenge. So I do think it will be a bit of a relegation scrap, but they'll survive. 18th, Scunthorpe United. I'm mad, I know. But does anyone actually think the way to achieve promotion is just to throw thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds at it? Well, this is what the new owners has done. A lot of these players are brought in on high wages and don't actually really want to play for the club. Andy Butler hasn't the first clue of how to manage a bunch of players with huge egos and a fan base which will pounce on any mistake made by a player or a manager. I can actually see Glanford Park being quite a cesspit of toxicity and very quickly them slipping and stagnating into a relegation battle. Never quite bad enough to look like they will make the drop, but also never looking like they really want to do well enough to move out of that position. As I always say, if you're bringing in a load of big players on big wages, they're just there for the money and they aren't there for the benefit of a football club. They should do things in a better style, a proper style of building up organically. 17th, Kings Lynn Town. Another team with unrealistic expectations coming into this season, I would say. If we look at the signings on paper, they look positive with plenty of experience, but look at where they finished last season. Lower half National League North players or relegation to lower half National League players. It's recruitment that looks content to be in the lower mid-table. They finished 18th last season, and I don't think this season will be too different. 16th, Chester. The early predictions are saying that the signs are pointing to Chester being promoted, especially with some of the acquisitions they've made. But for me, there's no doubting the quality of the signings, but will they work together for the club? Often the club that is considered to have the best transfer window don't actually succeed to meet them expectations. Why is that? Well, they come in with an expectation of game time, not most of the players, and they come in with pedigree from the league above, so they treat each game as if it will be an easy doddle of a walkover. Callum McIntyre, for me, hasn't pulled up any trees with Chester yet. Yes, he's made a playoffs for a couple of seasons ago, but was one of the favourites to actually get promoted from that and did bottle it. He's yet again has that pressure of being the favourites, and he doesn't seem to cope well under pressure, so I think it will be a stagnation in mid-table. 15th, Buxton. Well, they seem to slot in neatly into being a mid-table outfit. They've recruited some really exciting youngsters on loan, but the issue might be too young to really challenge for anything. John McGrath is a very good non-league manager, but has spent his managerial career in the league below with Mickleover, and he needs to build a competitive squad, so mid-table will suit Buxton for another season, but soon I think they'll be on competitive for the upper end of the table. I'm pretty certain of that. 14th, Hereford. Another stereotypical mid-table National League North side. They are so inconsistent that you think they'll challenge for the playoffs, will be relegated, and end up doing neither. Paul Caddis has a plan which will keep Hereford afloat but also competitive. I'm just not convinced he can raise them above mid-table. They seem to have had the quietest transfer window so far. Of the few signings they have made, none of them really strike out as being phenomenal or playoff worthy. Just bog standard National League North mid-table players, to be honest. 13th, South Shields. A moment of transition at Shields with new owners coming in, and we aren't quite sure what their intentions are. Retaining of a manager is a good move who plays positive possession-based football, but with a loss of Blair Adams and the firepower he brought, that has substantially been hampered. I think their home ground will become a bit of a fortress, but I do think they'll struggle away when they don't have so much possession and time of the ball. So a bit of a dip to mid-table for me. 12th, Marine. They've proven more than capable of competing above their level with several impressive FA Cup runs of late. But knockout football is very different from league football. Yes, they will do impressive in some games. It won't be week in and week out though. And although the start will be positive, they will taper to mid-table by February. Be content with it to battle it out to finish 12th. I do think they are, though, a bit of an unknown quantity coming into this season, having just received back-to-back promotions. You're never quite sure where they'll finish. 11th, Darlington. Steve Watson has performed a miracle to be able to perform at an extraordinarily great escape that they had last season. And looking at his spell at York, it was a very successful spell, and I think it will be a consistent season, being maybe an outside shout for the playoffs. But realistically, I think Darlow fans will be content with a mid-table finish. I think what we will see is quite a low turnaround shown by the relatively limited transfer activity so far. Sometimes that is good because a rapid exodus and a new influx can quickly unravel to another poor season. For me, 10th, Brackley Town. They've retained a lot of players, but surely back-to-back losses in the playoff finals will lead to a bit of dejection and early season blues. Wondering of what ifs and maybes instead of taking the real risks and playing the football that they have done in the past, which does get results. It will eventually clip back together, but too little too late, and they will miss out on the playoffs. 9th, Spennymoor Town. They always pop up at the beginning and end of the season with good form, but are awful mid-season. It's just the way it goes. What is shown throughout the last few seasons is a team that is never good enough to reach the playoffs, but is always competitive, looking like they might. Graham Lee has been a successful manager, but for me, Gary Liddell leaving is a disappointing move, and so many high-level players have come in, so really they'll probably end up in a similar position. 8th, Radcliffe. Everyone had really high hopes for South Shields when they were first promoted. I've not really heard the same about Radcliffe, but they dominated the Northern Premier League last season. They scored 103 goals. That is an insane amount of goals. The retention rate has been impressive as well for the players at the club, and Tom Walker is a good acquisition with much experience in the National League North upwards, having been promoted from the National League before. For me, they are a very exciting team and one to watch, but will probably just miss out on the playoffs. 7th, Scarborough Athletic. Jonathan Greening has done a really good job with his club. They finished 8th in 2022-23, and I reckon it will be a similar position with some of the acquisitions made. Richie Bennett comes off a loan spell where he's scored a goal pretty much every 3 games or so. Michael Duckworth comes in from the league above, having a great spell with York City and is vastly experienced, so can lift standards to get them into the playoffs. Kieran Glynn is also experienced both for National League North and National League, and this type of recruitment really signifies a club that could reach the playoffs and really wanting to push for them. 6th, Peterborough Sports. Dion Sembi Ferris has signed, and whenever he's played for Sports, he's been excellent for them. I cannot really explain why I put them 6th, but I think we will see quite a visionary club with a lot of shrewd loanees, and they are a side that revolutionises youngsters into ballers. So that nice blend of youth experience and players in the peak of their career at the moment, it is a side that has that balance which is needed to create success, and they do frequently overperform expectations. I think many people last season and the season before had them nailed on favourites for relegation. 5th, Alfreton Town. Every time the season finishes, we see the Reds in the playoffs. They have a wonderful weapon in long throws and long balls, and they play with the most effective route one I think I've ever seen. And Billy Heath is a mastermind behind this success, making signings that complement that style of play. Billy Whitehouse is a tricky winger who is good at crosses and set pieces. Adam Anson comes in from a 4-year spell with Southport. Max Hunt comes in with plenty of experience from the league above, and at 6'6", fits the centre-back profile of Alfreton very well. So looking at all this, I can see another season of immense success, despite not being pretty. 4th, Warrington Town. Settled in this league quite nicely, and are ready to progress again. Mark Beasley clearly has a model and a successful one at that, having a win percentage of 45.45%. And is enough to finish in the playoffs for sure. And with a large pool of fans to draw in, with Warrington being such a large town. Bowen Dixon comes in as a player who knows the club and is a successful player as well. And a lot of the players who have stayed have a bit really between their teeth, knowing that they can go to the next level. They also have experience and abundance in the squad, so I can definitely utilise that for the extra mile that is needed. And I do think they'll push and be quite comfortable playoff contenders this season. 3rd, Chorley. Andy Priest is a seasoned professional manager now and has had very good success with the Magpies so far. George Horbury, who was a fan's favourite last season, is back permanently. And for Bermudan international Cole Hall, comes in with National League North pedigree. Although I don't actually rate him that high, others do. But the side doesn't need to have too much tampering with, because they are a playoff quality side in the National League North, and they may have one eye on the title, but I'm not too sure about that. Second, Kidderminster Harriers. They got promoted too soon to the National League, but this season they will do very well, with a solid fan base behind them, and Phil Brown at the wheel, who's a successful manager, having won promotion as a manager twice before in the EFL. It looks like they will permanently be in the playoffs until the end of the season. Joe Fawkes is now permanent, having had 2 great loan spells with the Harriers. The recruitment at present, to me, seems to be promising youngsters, which are always enthusiastic for the game. But when the pressure comes on and getting to the title, I'm not too sure they'll manage it and crumble under that pressure. For me, Needham Market are winning the league. Kevin Horlock is a season winner, having won promotion with both Needham Market and Malden and Tiptree. And you know what they say, winning breeds more winning. They keep things tidy at the back and score a decent amount of goals, which is a winning combination. The defensive attributes cannot be understated. We saw with Tamworth winning the league last season that by having a solid defence, the season that Tamworth promoted from the Southern League, they conceded more goals than Needham Market did this season. They've just been promoted. So why can't Needham Market do a back-to-back like Tamworth did? The incomings are young, some with experience as a promotion, and sometimes the side coming in with the least pressure to perform well does perform the most unexpected results and performs admirably well. I don't know where people thought Tamworth were going to finish last season, but I don't think many people had them for the title. On to the other Tier 6 league, the National League South. For 24th, I'm going with Hemel Hempstead Town. And a horrendous end to the season, and that form will only continue into this one. I look at Bobby Wilkinson, and it isn't the appointment that fills me with confidence, having a pretty poor spell with Weymouth, where they were in the relegation zone until the last day of the season, I think. That type of appointment is negative and will doom the Tudors to relegation. Ben Tompkins comes in from a side where everything was positive to a setting of negativity. Now that isn't very good for a fragile 19-year-old. Bailey Brown is a good appointment, but it also shows a real mark on the side that they can only recruit former players. I could go on, but the media seems to be putting a positive spin on things from a club website, and when I think about it, I just think it will inevitably end in tears. 23rd, Slough Town. Last season was an overachievement, with the club more frequently competing in a relegation battle of late. Scott Davis doesn't inspire me with good confidence as someone who can take the club to the next level, and they've signed a keeper from a league below. Lexus Beeden has started being a lower league player. Dan Roth played in Tier 7 last season, getting relegated. John Afua played in the league below. Sam Evans played in the Southern League. John Gilbert is old and was in Tier 8 last year. Well, what I'm trying to say is that the appointments point to a side going backwards, maybe towards Tier 7 themselves. You can't just build a side from Tier 7 and Tier 8 players and expect them to be a top-end Tier 6 side. I think they'll go backwards and get relegated. 22nd, Tunbridge Angels. A club travelling backwards at the moment, and for spells last season, they look like they could be relegated. For me, a fresh face as manager is needed, with Jay Saunders having been at the club for 2 seasons and things only regressing under his watch. They also seem to be appointing players who previously played for them or youngsters from EFL academies. It just doesn't spell a side who is looking to mount a playoff push and rather just sit in transition. But you can't sit still forever. With the trajectory currently going backwards, I think they will be sucked into a relegation battle and will become a victim of yet another side like the Dartfords of this world, who were too comfortable in the National League South and get relegated. 21st, Chelmsford City. Bit of a mental call, this. There is always a double-edged sword of being in the playoffs. They've been in the playoffs several times as well over the last few years. And the players and managers have got to get itchy feet and wonder whether they could make it to going to a bigger club instead of constantly being that team which reaches the playoffs but can't succeed in it. Robbie Simpson, I must say, has yet to jump ship. But if you look at other clubs in the league, or maybe even a couple, they will be circling. Any manager with his record will want to grab onto a chance of managing the league above. Maybe Southend or Colchester. I mean, I especially look at Colchester, who is struggling at present, and I don't think Cowley will stay there long. Chelmsford has already had an exodus of players, which at present totals 9 players leaving, some of them quite experienced, and the new signings aren't like-for-like replacements. So if Simpson does stay and wants to implement the same style of play, then I think it will be difficult. I'll see them tumbling down the league if Simpson leaves, which I think he will, hence why I put them in 21st. 20th, Weymouth. Realistically, the relegation battle last season in the National League South was a mess. Most of the clubs confirmed relegated for most of the season, and Weymouth for the longest time seeming like they were going to be one of the sides, but they managed to pull off a masterstroke in avoiding relegation. They have had a shake-up in management terms with the appointment of Mark Molesley. This appointment is based on sentimental reasons for me. He had a spell between 2017 and 2020 for Weymouth and did well. But since then, he's been poor, barring a season with Gosport. But with Hayes and Yeading United, he only won 1 in 5 games. Even less than that when he was the manager at Southend. For me, it just seems quite a poor appointment and is only just good enough to stay up. Genesini hasn't had many appearances for a 22-year-old. Amati is a positive signing if they want to stay in the league, but no higher than mid-table. Corey Jordan is another appointment to avoid relegation, and Malachi Linton is a decent option when they're in a relegation fight. What I can see is a squad designed to stay in the league, hence why I think 20th is where they'll finish. 19th, Farnborough. Last season they did well, but most of the time were in mid-table. 8th place was a deception due to the last few games run pushing them into the playoff picture. Spencer Day is a committed manager, but the question is whether he can build on last season or whether he'll fall off a bit. Sam Smart is a very good acquisition, but the rest is just recycling players who've been associated with the club previously. I just see this season as being one for disappointment after years of highs for the Hampshire outfit. 18th, Boreham Wood. Relegation would have come as a bit of a shock, I think, to the Hertfordshire outfit. They have just appointed a manager in Ross Jenkins, who, yes, got Oxford City promoted from this league, but also got them relegated as the worst side in the National League. This manager needed some time to find out what went wrong, instead of just jumping straight into another job with quite weighty expectations at that. At least with Oxford, the expectations weren't massive, so when he got promoted and then relegated, it wasn't unexpected. Boreham Wood, they'll be expecting an instant return, especially considering the calibre of some of the youthful acquisitions, having been in absolutely huge academies. So just for me, I just think it's just one of them appointments that wrong time, right person, just wrong time. And maybe if he was appointed halfway through the season, it would have been slightly better of an appointment. But now I can't see it. 18th. 17th, Truro City. With a brand new stadium, it certainly looks like the plans for the future in motion. However, they haven't really invested that much in the playing squad at the same time for the last couple of years. John Askey could be seen as an aspirational choice for management, but he will want a lot of control over the playing squad, which means all the appointments are made by him, and when things don't go well, which sometimes does happen under him, let's not forget that spell at Hartlepool, then he will be stuck with what to do, like his players after all. But he certainly has an attractive attacking philosophy, but I don't know whether that will be much use in the National League South, especially since his experiences have come from the leagues above. Some of the signings show a real desire to be challenging. I just think there's too much pressure. Similar to what I said with Scunthorpe and Chester, I think quite a similar thing will happen, of just too much expectations on the club. 16th, Salisbury. Brian Dutton has played at this level, but never managed, so it's hard to place where they will finish. He was a successful player in the Conference South with Salisbury. Harrison Bright looks quite a prospect to me, and Luke Wilkinson comes in with tons of National League and League 2 experience. With several others coming in with quite a blend, so I think it will be quite a respectable mid-table finish come the end of the season. 15th, Eastbourne Borough. Adam Murray is a manager with a keen eye for detail, playing pretty Dutch-style football of passing and bringing in youngsters. This proved successful in 2022-23 for Fylde in the National League North, where they earned promotion. What I would be interested in is seeing how long it will take to fully implement this style successfully. Eastbourne may well get some good youngsters playing attractive football, but it doesn't always bear results and will end up being a solid mid-table finish. But if Eastbourne want to improve on mid-table, they need to acknowledge it's a long-term project and not make any rash decisions such as sacking the manager. 14th, Hampton and Richmond Borough. A typical mid-table side who looked quite positive last season in parts, but they did crash out into 9th. However, they now have a new manager in Alan Julian, and let's be honest, he has no clue on how to manage yet. Learning on the job doesn't always deliver results. But Ted Kurd surely can't be the first team goalkeeper. He's only 18 years old, for goodness sake. Critchlow has never managed to hold down a position at a club. Odie Martin is calm on the ball and is one of the best midfielders in the league. Jerry Wiltshire, it's just a weird signing, like least how many British Virgin Island footballers you can name. Away. I'm imagining you couldn't name any. That's what I was thinking at the same time. Christian Campbell, although experienced, isn't a top-end player. Alex Wall was a decent player a couple of seasons ago and has a good scoring record, just can't play regularly, it seems. And as you can see, a right mixed bunch, so we'll probably end up with a mix of results culminating in mid-table. 13th, Chesham United. A lot of new players have come in, 8 at the time of recording, and this shows a combination of optimism, but also fearful that they weren't strong enough to come into the league above. For me, they've made too many changes that would result in loss of that feel-good spirit they had of promotion. But then again, not too many players to end up in a relegation battle, and so it's a weird thing. They're in between the two at the moment. Hence why I put them mid-table. I reckon it is a slow rebuild plan to adapt to this level for the long term, and will achieve it by achieving a 13th place finish. 12th, Weston-super-Mare. Scott Bartlett is a decent manager, and you can only need to look at his record with the Seagulls, and you can see he's taken this team from the Southern League to a solid mid-table National League South side. I'll look at recruitment, and you can see the potential that's there for the club, but for this season, yet again, another mid-table finish. 11th, Bath City. Last season was good, but a bit punching above their weight. Normally, they are outside the playoffs by a few points, and this is where I think they'll finish this season. Jerry Gill has been around for a while with Bath and has reaped rewards. Whether he can prove success this season or revert to type with a decent season but not an excellent one remains to be seen. They have acquired players who have performed well towards the bottom of the league above or towards the top end of the National League South, apart from Taunton's captain. So overall positive recruitment in that regards, but they have also lost a core part of their squad from turning down contracts, so it's a difficult one to say. 10th, Torquay United. They have been lifted out of administration and Neil Warnock is in charge of the football side of the administration, which is always a good sign. When Paul Wotton came in to Truro, they were struggling in the Southern League, and he turned their fortunes around to take them into a mid-table National League South side, before coming to Torquay. With enough time and a workable budget, he will in a few seasons take Torquay back to the National League. But realistically, Torquay aren't going to immediately pull up any trees, having to pay off creditors, probably reverting to a semi-professional club, and pay low wages. It's unlikely they'll be promoted at the first time of asking, but I do think they will definitely be competitive. 9th, Welling United. Stringer has several successful accolades to his name, with an Isthmian League Division 1 North title, National League South champions, achieved the National League South playoffs a further 3 times, and an Isthmian League Division 1 North playoff final. Now, I don't care what level you're at. If you're winning, you're winning. And a serial winner at that can definitely turn the ship around at the Wings, who have stagnated for a while, to be fair. I look at the recruitment and there is a fair bit of risk involved when signing this We're signing these youngsters coming in. However, it is a team that can be forged together for future success. And with Welling having a successful manager, I think it is a logical conclusion to put them in a battle for playoffs due to the high energy players that they do have. 8th, Chippenham Town. They certainly have made an impact on the league, despite having a mid-table, being in mid-table recently. They've always been a team looking like they have got a bit of an outside shot. I liken them maybe to Spennymoor in the National League North. Gary Horgan has been relatively good since coming in, taking the side from lower mid-table relegation scrappers to upper mid-table fighting towards the playoffs. Will Dawes was very popular while at Yeovil Town, being the supporters player of the season in 2021-22, and a lot of the good players have extended their stay with Chippenham. I think with a strong core, they can definitely mount a playoff challenge, possibly. Just I don't think they're quite good enough to ensure them. 7th, Enfield Town. When you think of Enfield, you usually think of the other club, Enfield FC, that was so strong in the conference during the 80s. Well, this is a different club, but that has taken a core amount of the fan base from the older club due to them still playing in Enfield. That fan base was known at the time and is still known for one of the greatest sets of fans in North London. So that support will help the success both on and off the pitch. But also the manager, Gary McPherson, who has 20 plus years of experience with Metropolitan Police, that has brought much success to that club, which would be sustainable in the short term and the long term. I see the blueprint of a squad that could feasibly get into the playoffs for me. 6th, St Albans City. For a lot of last season, St Albans were in the playoffs, but capitulated towards the end to finish 11th. David Noble, during his first spell at the club, took them into the playoffs. Therefore, he knows how to get the best out of his team. David Long King is a sign of the club's aspiration, and he's taken a step down from mid-table National League outfit. Iffy Allen is known to having days which are both good, but also days that are quite bad. So I think that's a risky recruitment. Ken Charles comes in, being both young and knows where the back of the net is. So the Signs look like a positive team, an aspiration of playoffs for me. 5th, Aveley. Many predicted this team to struggle in the National League South last season. I didn't, because this team has a small team mentality, and that goes into every game playing without pressure, and that meant they reached the playoffs last season. I can see this being replicated, and maybe this time they'll win the playoffs. You never know. Danny Scopes has experience in the National League South for 3 seasons now, and has brought good results over his time in this league. They also recruit young players who are eager to prove themselves, which has reaped benefits for the club in the past. 4th, Dorking Wanderers. They may have been relegated, but they know how to get into the playoffs, having achieved that for 3 seasons in the National League South of a promotion push, having achieved that 3 times in a row. Playoffs in 2019-20, 2020-21, and 2021-22. And Mark White was the manager to achieve all of them successes. It brought in a combination of National League players who have been battling for relegation, but also some challenging towards the playoffs in the National League South. Added to the experience of recent success in the National League South, it just seems like a good chance that they will finish in the playoffs. 3rd, Maidstone United. I look at this side and Elo Kobe, I think it's how you pronounce it, has brought success with an unbelievable run in the FA Cup. I mean, reaching the 4th round of the FA Cup, that's not been done since the 1970s with Blythe Spartans for a team this level. And for me, that performance against Ipswich, beautiful. And they also had a good league campaign as well. Let's not dampen that either. Shaq Colehurst comes in with a very good record in this league, with it scoring a goal better than a goal pretty much every 3 games, slightly better. But yeah, and during that spell with loans on loan with Braintree last season, he helped them to get to the playoffs. Couldn't actually help them to the promotion because he was recalled to Ebbsfleet, but he did his bit for that club as well, helping them stay in the National League, as well as helping them previously get promoted from the National League South, and has also had EFL experience, so he is a wonderful signing. Fonku has good experience in this league with a good spell with Dartford 2 seasons ago. Charlie Seaman has experiences from the leagues above. Krasniki comes in with a fair few seasons experience in the top end of the National League South. Jordan Hicks has over 120 appearances in the National League South and over 100 in the league above. Aaron Blair has an all-time record of a goal every 4 games, which to be able to replicate that throughout an entire career is a good rate. What I see is recruitment of players who experience at the very top end of this league, but who can also perform in the league above. And this is just a star-studded squad. It may take him a bit of time to click. That's the only reason I put them third. So I think with a high retention rate, guaranteed promotion to the league after if they don't win the playoffs this season coming up. Second, Worthing. Everything seems to be developing on and off the pitch for this club. Chris Agater is a young, promising manager who has links with Brighton, so can recruit promising youngsters. They also are recruiting well with players who have been in the league above and performed for at least mid-table sides in that league, and have also been at the top end at National League South players. They've assembled a squad that could definitely compete at the very top end of this league and are worthy challengers for the title. Finally, first, Hornchurch. Now, back-to-back promotions isn't an unheard of feat. We saw it with numerous teams last season, with Ipswich and Wrexham both pulling it off. And Tamworth as well. There's no hidden formula success. There is a good atmosphere, a feel-good atmosphere within the squad, and that just leads to more success. Daryl McMahon is a phenomenal manager. He's got an 82.35% win percentage with Hornchurch, but he also did well with Dagenham and Redbridge, which had a template and almost reached the playoffs but missed out on a single point. Just look at the club, though, since he left. That whole project has collapsed, and they've been looking over their shoulders at relegation. Macclesfield, we kind of ignore because that was a trying spell with the club eventually being wound up. But most impressive of all was his spell at Ebbsfleet, where he had so much success in the National League South, and that impressive 96-point campaign, which meant that they won the title and then took them into the playoffs the season after. Charlie Adams comes in as a player with bundles of experience in the National League. Darren McQueen comes in with experiences of this league and the one above, having helped Ebbsfleet to promotion. Jazzy Barnum Bob has only ever played at the very top of the end of the leagues he's been in, and is an international player for the St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Angelo Balanta has spent the last 8 seasons in the National League, having played League One and League Two football before that. Mason Terry is from West Ham's prestigious academy, and these aren't signings that show a squad willing to cruise in mid-table or avoid relegation. No, they are wanting another league title, and I think they will get it. Thank you very much for watching this video. Yes, it's been a blast. Please let me know your predictions down below. Please keep it friendly. I know people get offended when I put their club in a position that they don't like. That happens with everyone. Just from Will at the end here, could you do a predictions for all of the season's matches in the league from tier 1 to 6 tiers on a weekly basis from August onwards? That would be amazing. You know what? I might consider that. It's a lot of time, but I will think about doing that. I won't go necessarily into as much depth as I always do with all of my videos. I'll just say the score predictions and maybe why I think that is. But that's a good idea. I will do that because it seems to be a popular thing that a few people have suggested now. But pleasure to have you, Will. And please subscribe. We're pushing for 150 by the end of this summer period, by September. Just hoping that we'll be able to get another one of these videos up shortly. The predictions for the National League should be about this time next week. And last time we had thousands of people watching this video, so I hope we get that many again. But goodbye for now.